There is a specific, visceral moment that you know all too well. It happens in a split second, faster than your conscious mind can even process. Someone looks at you, really looks at you, and says something kind. Maybe they praise your work. Maybe they notice you look tired and ask, with genuine concern, if you are okay. Maybe they just tell you that they appreciate having you in their life. And instead of a warm glow spreading through your chest, instead of that soft feeling of being held or seen, you feel a sudden, sharp contraction. It's like a shutter slamming down over a window. Your stomach tightens. Your breath catches. A silent alarm starts ringing in the back of your skull. You smile, you say, "Oh, it is nothing," or "I am just busy," or "Don't worry about me." You deflect. You crack a joke, you change the subject to them. You perform the dance of "I'm fine," with the grace of a professional acrobat. But later, when the noise of the day dies down and the lights are out, you are left with a hollow ache that feels confusingly like hunger. You tell yourself you just need space. You tell yourself people are exhausting. You tell yourself you are just naturally independent, a lone wolf, someone who doesn't need the messy entanglement of other people's emotions. But deep down, in the quietest, most honest corner of your mind, you know that is a lie. You don't avoid connection because you don't want it. You avoid it because you want it so desperately, so terrifyingly much, that the very possibility of having it and losing it, or being consumed by it. This is the silent tragedy of the hyper-independent adult. You are standing in front of a banquet of love and connection, starving to death, because some part of you is convinced the food is poisoned. Let's dismantle this. Let's take apart the architecture of this wall you have built, brick by heavy brick, not to criticize it, but to understand why you built it in the first place. Because what you call independence is often just a very sophisticated, very socially acceptable name for a trauma response. To the outside world, you are the rock. You are the low-maintenance friend. You are the employee who never needs management, the partner who never nags, the child who never caused trouble. You are competent. You are put together. You are the one people call when they are falling apart, because you always seem to have the answers. You are an expert at solving other people's problems, while meticulously hiding the fact that you are drowning in your own. You have curated a persona of invulnerability. You have polished your exterior until it is smooth and frictionless, offering no jagged edges for anyone to grab onto. You text back, but you rarely initiate. You show up to the party, but you leave early. You listen to everyone else's secrets, holding space for their darkest fears. But when the spotlight turns to you, you become a master of the vagueness. "I am good," you say. Same old, same old. You are present enough to not be forgotten, but distant enough to never be truly known. You love people from a safe distance, from across the room, from behind a screen, from the other side of an emotional moat filled with crocodiles that you put there yourself. And the irony, the people around you think you are strong. They admire your self-sufficiency. They wish they could be as unbothered as you. They have no idea that your independence isn't a trophy. It is a fortress. And inside that fortress, it is incredibly painfully quiet. The psychology behind this is not about being cold. It is not about being heartless. In fact, it is usually the exact opposite. If we were to look at the MRI of your emotional history, we would likely find that this pattern didn't start when you were 20 or 30. It started much, much earlier. It started in the small, quiet moments of childhood that didn't look like trauma to the naked eye. Maybe you weren't abused in the way movies depict. Maybe you had a roof over your head and food on the table. But maybe, just maybe, you were the child who learned that having needs was inconvenient. Perhaps you had parents who were emotionally volatile, so you learned to shrink yourself to make room for their big feelings. You became the peacemaker, the invisible regulator of the household's emotional temperature. You learned that if you were quiet, if you were easy, if you needed nothing, you were safe. Or maybe you were the glass child, the sibling of someone who needed more attention, more care, more resources. You watched your parents struggle, and you made a silent vow. I will not be another burden. I will handle myself. Or perhaps you were the sensitive one, the child who felt everything in high definition, and when you tried to share those big feelings, you were told you were too much, too dramatic, or too intense. You learned that your authentic self was overwhelming to the people who were supposed to care for you. So, you performed a spiritual amputation. You cut off the parts of yourself that needed things. You severed the connection between feeling and expressing. You learned a brutal lesson. Findependency is dangerous. ***, relying on others leads to disappointment, confusion, or rejection. The only person you can truly trust, the only person who will never let you down, is you. This belief system became your survival manual, and it worked. It got you through childhood. It helped you survive adolescence. It probably helped you build a successful career. But now, as an adult, that same manual is ruining your life, because the walls you built to keep out the pain are now keeping out the love. This is where we need to talk about the nervous system. Because this isn't just in your head, it is in your body. It is wired into your biology. For the securely attached person, intimacy feels like a warm bath. It regulates them. When they are stressed, being near someone they love brings their heart rate down. It lowers their cortisol. Intimacy feels like a threat. When someone gets too close, your amygdala, the lizard brain responsible for detecting danger, lights up like a Christmas tree. It doesn't see love, it sees invasion. It sees the potential for loss. It sees the terrifying possibility of being seen, truly seen, and being found, lacking. So your body reacts before your mind even catches up. You feel that tightness in your chest. You feel the urge to run. You feel suddenly irritated by the sound of their chewing or the way they breathe. You pick a fight over nothing just to create some breathing room. This is your nervous system slamming the brakes, screaming, too close, danger, back away. You are not cold. You are essentially suffering from an allergic reaction to intimacy. And here is the paradox that breaks your heart when you finally admit it. You don't push people away because you don't care. You push them away because you care too deeply. You are likely a highly sensitive person. You notice every micro-expression. You hear the tone change in a text message. You feel the energy shift in a room the moment you walk in. Because you feel so much, the stakes of connection feel incredibly high to you. If you let someone in and they leave, it won't just be sad. It will be a catastrophe. It will confirm that ancient, whispered fear that you are unlovable. If you let someone in and they see the messy parts of you, the anxiety, the neediness, the fear, and they look at you with disgust, it will destroy you. So you control the narrative. You curate yourself. You offer people a filtered, edited, polished version of who you are. You give them the cool girl, the stoic guy, the successful professional. You let them fall in love with the mask because you are terrified that if they saw the face beneath it, they would run. But this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of loneliness. Because even when people say they love you, you don't believe them. You think they love the mask. They don't love me. If they knew the real me, they wouldn't stay. So you feel fraudulent. You feel lonely even when you are being held, because you know the person holding you is holding a stranger. You have become an expert at what psychologists call counter-dependency. This is not true independence. True independence is a choice. Counter-dependency is a compulsion. It is the refusal of help, even when you are drowning. It is the inability to lean on anyone, ever. It shows up in the way you refuse to ask for directions. It shows up in the way you move apartments entirely by yourself, lifting boxes until your back breaks, rather than asking a friend to help. It shows up in the way you hide your sickness, your financial struggles, your grief. You tell yourself this makes you strong, but there is a difference between being strong and being impenetrable. A stone is impenetrable, but it is dead. A tree is strong because it can bend, because it has roots that intertwine with others. The cost of this lifestyle is exhaustion, soul deep exhaustion. It is exhausting to constantly monitor your own behavior to ensure you never appear needy. It is exhausting to suppress your natural human impulse for connection. It is exhausting to be the therapist for everyone else, while having no one who knows your internal landscape. You might notice that you feel socially hungover very quickly. You go to a gathering, and within an hour, you are drained. That's not just introversion. That is the energy cost of maintaining the shield. You are working twice as hard as everyone else in the room. You are participating in the conversation, while simultaneously manning the guard towers of your emotional fortress. And sometimes this avoidance manifests in the strangest ways. You might find yourself obsessed with the one that got away, or a partner who is emotionally unavailable. Why? Because pining for someone who isn't there is safe. It allows you to feel the intensity of love without the risk of real intimacy. You can fantasize about the perfect relationship because it's not real. Real relationships are messy, boring, annoying, and demanding. Fantasy is safe, or maybe you are a workaholic. Success is a great place to hide. If you are busy, you don't have to be vulnerable. If you are productive, you have an excuse for why you can't come to dinner. You substitute being needed for being loved. You trade admiration for intimacy. You'd rather be respected than known. But here is the shift. Here is the part where we turn the lights on. The life you have built is safe, yes, but it is small. And it is getting smaller every day. The walls you built to keep out the bad guys are also blocking the sunlight. The air inside your fortress is getting stale. You are realizing that the price of never getting hurt is never truly living. You are starting to see that you are not protecting yourself, you are jailing yourself. The moment of change doesn't come with a bang, it comes with a whisper. It comes when the pain of the isolation finally outweighs the fear of the vulnerability. It comes when you realize that you are tired of being the strong one. You are tired of being the mystery. You want, just for once, to be the one who is held. So, how do you dismantle a fortress without leaving yourself defenseless? You do it slowly. You do it with what psychologists call titration. You don't dynamite the walls. You take out one brick at a time. You don't need to go from hyper-independent to completely codependent overnight. You don't need to vomit your deepest traumas to a stranger on a first date. That's just the other side of the pendulum. Healing looks like microdoses of truth. It starts with saying, I am actually having a tough day, instead of, I am fine. It starts with accepting a compliment by just saying, thank you, and letting it land, resisting the urge to deflect it. It starts with asking for help with something small. Can you help me carry this? Can you look at this email for me? It feels terrifying at first. Your nervous system will scream. It will tell you that you are being a burden. It will tell you that you are weak, but you do it anyway. And then you watch what happens. Usually, the sky doesn't fall. Usually, the other person doesn't run away. In fact, they usually lean in. They feel closer to you. Because vulnerability creates a vacuum that draws people in. It is the glue of human connection. When you show a crack in the armor, you give the other person permission to be human too. You signal that it is safe to be imperfect in your presence. You need to learn the difference between unsafe and uncomfortable. Unsafe is a toxic relationship, abuse, manipulation. You should avoid that. Uncomfortable is being seen. Uncomfortable is asking for a need to be met. Uncomfortable is admitting you are lonely. Growth happens in the uncomfortable. You also need to rewrite your definition of strength. The old definition was, strength is needing no one. Strength is silence. Strength is endurance. The new definition is, strength is the courage to be seen. Strength is the ability to trust. Strength is knowing you can survive being hurt, so you don't have to spend your life hiding from it. You have to trust yourself. Not trust that others will never hurt you. They might. People are fallible. People are messy. But you have to trust that if they do hurt you, then you will be okay. You are not that helpless child anymore. You have resources now. You have agency. You can walk away. You can heal. You can set boundaries because you know you can handle the fall. You can finally afford to jump. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of this fear. A version of you that breathes easier. A version of you that doesn't overthink every text message. A version of you that can sit in silence with another person and feel peace, not panic. Imagine a relationship where you don't have to perform, where you can just vibe by, where you can come home, take off the armor, take off the mask, and just sit in your own skin. Imagine being loved, not for what you do, or what you achieve, or how few problems you cause, but simply for who you are. That isn't a fantasy. It is a possibility, but it requires you to make a choice. It requires you to stop treating your heart like a maximum security prison. It requires you to stop treating your needs like crimes. It requires you to look at that wall you built and decide that the view on the other side is worth the risk of taking it down. You have spent your whole life becoming an expert at survival. You have survived. You made it. You are safe now. But survival is not the same thing as living. It is time to retire the soldier. It is time to retire the bodyguard. It is time to let the human being step forward. Because the world is missing out on you. The Fiveli, you. Not the polished, perfect, independent statue you've presented, but the messy, complex, feeling, vibrant human beneath it. And more importantly, Fin, you are missing out on the world. You are missing out on the deep, messy, beautiful, terrifying, glorious experience of truly sharing a life. So the next time someone says something kind, try this. Don't deflect, don't shrink, don't explain it away. Just stop. Take a breath. Feel the tightness in your chest, acknowledge it, and then let it soften. Look them in the eye and say, thank you. Let it in. It won't destroy you. It might just be the first brick coming down. It might just be the beginning of your real life.